Welcome back to another episode of Arches of Horror. On today's episode, we'll be discussing the horror comedy classic Return of the Living Dead.
It's true.
It is true. He wouldn't lie to you. Trust me.
That is what the episode is about. I know you thought that at the last second we're going to change it to another episode about cutting class, but no, we're going to talk about Return of the Living Dead.
You know what? It's not an episode on Return of Your Hair. That's for sure.
That is for sure. We are in the end game. I was just listening to the Taylor Swift song Endgame on the treadmill today, and that could be sung about my hair. I was shaving my beard like 2 days ago, and I kept like moving the razor up towards my head, and I was like, just do it. Just fucking do it. And I was like, no, not yet. The thing is, I did cut off, I like, when I got a haircut the other day, the lady left one hair that was like a foot long, so as if I could like wrap it around my head in like a beehive. But I cut that off, and I'm feeling much better.
We just washed the hair. You know, I work on my hair a long time, and you hit it.
A lot of people say that we don't introduce ourselves on this podcast, Rusty. So I just want to say that I'm Rusty, and you're Ed, the rapidly balding man. And we're here to say, rate and review the podcast on iTunes.
For the record, people that are listening for the first time are going to be confused by that. So, whatever.
That's true. I'm Ed.
Yes.
AKA Eddie.
Ed D. So anyways, Return of the Living Dead is a horror comedy classic. Did you think it was a brilliant horror comedy?
I loved it. I love this movie.
I know.
When I first saw it, we'll get to that in a second, but when I first saw it, I did not love it, and now I love it.
Wait, when was the first time you saw it that you didn't love it? Like recently?
No. When the very first time I saw this movie, I was like, I'd say 18 years old or so. And it was right when eBay was first starting, and this movie was getting a little hard to find on VHS.
Yeah.
And I had to buy it.
I want to tell you something, and I mean this sincerely. No matter what happens, don't name it after me.
How much Catholic guilt did you have left in you at 18?
Tons.
So seeing the character Trash doing her dance, did that make you feel shame?
It made me just feel like I was watching a trashy film. And
really?
I think that I didn't get, at that age, like, I don't know, maybe I was just getting into, I didn't really get like the kind of comedy that this was. So when Linnea Quigley is like, I like death, I just thought it was cheesy. I didn't think it was like funny and also like in on the joke.
Do you ever fantasize about being killed?
I saw this movie at a very young age, and it completely went over my head with the comedic elements. So basically, I would just watch it as a horror film, which kind of freaked me out at that age.
Yeah, I think if I had seen this when I was younger, it would have been terrifying because there are a lot of genuinely creepy little things in it.
Want to see him? See him? Corpses.
Rusty, I was just in New York. As you know, I stayed at your place.
Well, you stayed in my shed at first, but then I let you in.
That's true. Yeah, so New York, that was a wild time. We were at our friend's wedding. At that wedding, as you know, this was kind of a funny story. You left at like 12:45, I think.
Like 12:30-ish. I think it was winding down around 12:15, so I left soon after that. But you lingered around.
Yes, I did. I was there till the end, and it was getting wild at the end. I could tell you that much. And it's kind of funny when you don't drink and you kind of forget about people getting drunk and you're old and you're secluded, and then you see people in public drunk. You don't know what the hell's going on, and you think like, is that guy having a stroke? But it was like the very end of the wedding. The lights come on, and there's just a few people wasted, and the DJ is like, the after party's at the bar. Everyone get out of here. The after party's at the bar. And no one is leaving. And I just felt like this tension building up. And I said to our friend, who I will call for the purposes of this story, Harry, I said to Harry, should we go to the after party now? And he said, yeah, let's go. So we leave the wedding venue is right next to the hotel where I was staying and where the hotel bar was. And so we go there, and first we go to my room and like smoked weed and like hung out for a minute. And so I thought that when we got to the bar, it was going to be packed with people from the wedding. But we get down into the bar. At that point, I was just really tired. And I felt like I can't really go to sleep yet, but I want to. And I'm just standing there. Me and Harry are just standing there. And this guy comes up to us, and he's really short. Not that that matters, but he's like 4'11", dressed horribly, smells. And he wasn't part of the wedding. And he comes up to us, and he's like, "Hey, how's it going? My name's Dean." And I'm like, I'm Ed. And he's like, "That's fantastic." Harry's like, "Yeah, I'm Harry." And he's like, "Great, fantastic." And he's like, "Who got married?" And we're like, "Oh, that guy and the lady in the wedding dress." And he's like, "Fantastic, fantastic. Where are you guys from?" I'm like, "Originally Seaford." "Fantastic." He's like, "Well, I live in Sayville now." "Fantastic." And he's like, "They get married here?" And we're like, "Oh yeah, we're right next door." He's like, "Fantastic. You go to the wedding, you drink, you party, you hang out, you come back here, you drink. No one's got to drive. You stay in the hotel. Fantastic." And we're like, "Yeah, yeah." And then we just didn't say anything. And there's like an awkward silence. And the guy goes, "Gentlemen, all right, I won't rain on your parade." And I was like, "Oh, there's no parade. There's never been a parade." And he walks away. And then I overhear him talking to the people he was with. And he's like, "I just went over those guys over there, tried talking to them. No personality, zero, nada, nothing going on upstairs." And a little while later, me and Harry are like, "Oh, let's leave." So I'm like walking out with him, and I'm like, "Oh man, you hear what that guy was saying?" I was like, "He was saying that we have no personality." And Harry's like, "What? What did he say?" And I don't know if he listens to this podcast, but just to make it, I mean, this part of the story you might want to leave in or not. But Harry got home that night. His soon-to-be ex-wife said, "We're going to get a divorce." And he texted me all night about this guy, Dean. He was like, "I just want to tie him to a chair and say, I have a personality. Then I want to kill him." So that's how he dealt with his grief. But yeah, interesting trip to New York.
It's like Reservoir Dogs has him tied up, like dancing around, cutting off his ear.
Yes, exactly.
Wait, I said his name, Harry. Shit.
Yeah.
I gotta bleep that part out.
Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
Rusty, this came out the same year as Day of the Dead. What did you think of Day of the Dead?
I barely remember that movie. I don't think I liked it though when I first saw it.
Me either. But I tell you what I do love is Night of the Living Dead. And also I love Return of the Living Dead, which is what our episode is about today.
Yes. Before we begin though, we just want to remind everyone to rate and review.
Yes, please. Think about what could be happening right now instead of this. We could be doing, commercials for fucking mattresses. We could be begging you to subscribe to our Patreon. Instead, all we're saying is, if you're listening on the iTunes app, just scroll down, hit 5 stars, then you're done. Right now, we're at 71 reviews. We just want to get to 100, and then we're going to jump off the Empire State Building.
I thought you were going to say we're going to douse ourselves with the 2,4,5 trioxin, see what happens.
That's what we're going to do on our way down. You know what I'm saying?
And also follow us on Instagram, Archers of Horror Podcast. That's it, right? Is that it? Okay.
ArchersOfHorrorPodcast.com. I like our Instagram.
I love it.
You can follow us on Twitter and shit like that, but I barely use it. Our Instagram is good.
Man, what a hideous, ugly place.
I like it. It's a statement.
Anyways, so we were saying the first time you've seen this movie, you were about
Yes.
18.
About 18.
I actually watched this at a friend's birthday party,
Go on.
probably in the mid to late 80s. The first time, though, seeing this, I was really intrigued by it, though, even though I was a little frightened. I loved the characters, even then. I always, like I said before on several episodes, that I always loved like punk or like freakish characters. And this movie was no exception. It really delivered and definitely had
Yeah.
that attitude, that punk attitude.
It definitely does.
What's the matter? Does it make you nervous? I'm hot.
Yeah, you are hot. Scram, wimp.
I don't know. I find all the characters just so good in this movie. Like, there's not one character I hate, and the one characters that you're supposed to hate, it's deliberate. Like, so you appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, this is the kind of movie where I can name like 10 characters in it that are good.
That's impressive for you.
Yeah. I can't do that for most films.
No.
Like if I was to say the recent film, Can You Ever Forgive Me? I'd say 2, Free Solo 1. If Beale Street Could Talk 4. Return of the Living Dead 10.
Believe it, asshole. Don't be so hostile, bitch.
Anyway, Return of the Living Dead. I love this movie. I love it except for one thing. Can I just say that before we even get into it? There's just one thing I don't love about this movie.
I think it's the same thing that I don't love.
Is it the slow-mo?
Yeah, they use it far too many times.
I think they use it only 3 times.
But that's far too many. One's too many.
Well, I'd say it works once, but now I'm getting very specific. The time where Freddy is grabbing his girlfriend and about to bite her, but then she kicks away, the slow-mo kind of works there because it kind of complements the scene. But the first time the slow-mo is used, right before the title comes on, when they slap
open the
tanks, that ruins that joke, which is an amazing joke. And then I don't really know why it's used during the intro of Linnea Quigley as a zombie, but we're getting way ahead of ourselves. Let's take it back a step and talk about this movie just for people who are not that familiar with it. 1985 horror comedy from director Dan O'Bannon, writer-director Dan O'Bannon. Not an official sequel to Night of the Living Dead. John Russo, who co-wrote Night of the Living Dead with George Romero, retained the rights to the phrase Living Dead. And so he wrote a script that was very bad, but the studio wanted to make a movie with Living Dead in the title. So they hired Dan O'Bannon, famous for writing Alien and Total Recall, to do the script. Tobe Hooper was originally going to direct it, but then he got the film Life Force financed through Canon. So he decided to make that instead, which is a bit like getting into Harvard, but then going to talk to some guy in an alley.
Don't you think that sounds a little bit paranoid?
No. No, I've never been paranoid.
What kind of different film would it have been if Tobe Hooper directed this?
I think it would have been more serious, even though Tobe Hooper has definitely got like a very similar sense of humor, I think. But I'm glad Dan O'Bannon did it. I mean, I think it would have been worse if Tobe Hooper directed it.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I was trying to set you up to say.
Dan O'Bannon said about Tobe Hooper, he said about the characters in Life Force, he said the performances could have been computer generated. It probably would have been an improvement. Wow. We had the one and only Tobe Hooper at the helm, which is approximately like having Bozo the Clown at the helm. Wow.
That's fighting words.
He also said Paul Verhoeven was a moron.
Why's Paul Verhoeven getting dragged into this?
He thought that he co-wrote the film Total Recall, but he thought that Paul Verhoeven did a bad job directing it.
That's a bit blasphemous.
That is, because we love that film, and he co-wrote it with his sometime writing partner Ron Shusett, I think. Rusty, I've got a fact about the Total Recall film.
Yeah, I know you mentioned that you had a fact. I'm dying to hear it.
So my very first LA apartment, and with my first LA roommate, this guy Dave, who was a teacher, still is a teacher, and there was one day he stayed home sick, and he watched the Total Recall DVD that came in that annoying red Mars case.
Yeah, I hated that one.
And I got home and he was like, "You got to see this! You got to see this!" And he had watched the behind the scenes on Total Recall, which is so weird for him. And at one point, they had shown the cover of the Total Recall script, and Dan O'Bannon had lived on our street. Like, you could look out the window and look at the apartment where they had written Total Recall.
Wow.
Which was crazy. And this roommate, I have very fond memories of him. We used to always watch the show Blind Date. Remember that show?
Yeah.
With Roger Lodge. And it was our dream to get him on the show. And so he submitted himself, and he ended up getting an audition for the show. And there's 3 auditions you would do for the show Blind Date. And he got through the first 2. And then the third one, do you remember how they would cut to the person's interview during the date where it's I like a girl who's into, spontaneity, things like that. That was the third interview. So that was your big interview. And we were all excited for this. And it ended up being on 9/11.
What happened on that day?
They never rescheduled.
The terrorists won that day.
They did. Rusty, everyone talks about where they were on 9/11. I ever tell you where I was on 9/10? I swear, I was watching Band of Brothers on HBO, and I thought to myself, I wonder when there will be another war. At that exact moment, a rat wandered into the doorway and looked at me. We made eye contact, and then it ran away, and I never found it.
That rat has a name. It's Splinter. He was trying to teach you the art of karate to take on the terrorists.
This is not a joke. I saw the rat, and I remember I was so unsettled that I could not sleep that night, and I played NFL 2K1 on Dreamcast until like 4:30 in the morning. And just think, like, somewhere out there while I was doing that, Muhammad Atta was also playing Dreamcast. He was playing the game Shenmue.
Is this true?
Anger clouds the mind. Turned inward, it is an unconquerable enemy.
Let's get you out of this mess.
Yeah.
American Werewolf in London. I see you have that in parentheses. What's that mean?
This movie reminds me of American Werewolf in London. It's like,
I love this setup.
the only two films that really do horror comedy like perfectly are this and American Werewolf in London. I want to have a kid and just show them these movies back to back to back to back to back.
I know I'm about to probably have a seizure, but did I see Red Letter Media mention American Werewolf in London?
Yeah, well, I've got the transcript of their episode. I saw that they had done a Muhammad Atta bit, and yeah, so then there we go. There you have it.
Wait. So what was your point about American Werewolf in London? What's the similarities?
It's just they remind me of each other. They have a similar feel, and they really. I mean, there's a lot of horror comedies that work. We've talked about a lot of them: Basket Case, Brain Damage, this American Werewolf in London, Basket Case, Society.
Just keep listing. Let's do 20 more minutes of listing stuff. Then let's wrap it up.
Robert Moses.
Oh, boy.
Frankly, Bert, I think you acted precipitously in cutting up the corpse.
Yeah, you may be right. I don't know, but I did it. So what are we going to do about it, Ernie?
One of the things this film is most known for is adding the element of zombies eating brains to the lore of zombies. This was the first time it was ever done.
Brain.
I didn't know that until you mentioned it, which makes perfect sense because I if you asked me, I couldn't place other movies before it. Does it also have other elements of zombies that was introduced? The way they strategized and the way they moved pretty normal.
Yeah, I mean that is definitely something that I haven't seen before this movie. You know what I think is the best aspect of this? I love how in this movie you can't kill the zombies. Like if you chop them up, the parts are still alive.
Yeah.
Even if you burn them, the gas they release will make more zombies. Because does it really make sense to shoot zombies in the head and kill them? Like,
no.
It makes it so much creepier if you can't kill them at all. Like, I think that element adds so much to this.
Yeah, I love that no matter how many times you break up the pieces, they'll keep moving.
Frank, right here, and when it comes out, you brain it with that axe.
Oh, Jesus!
How am I going to stop it from moving? What's the matter with you, Frank?
I also like that, and it's kind of funny when the character Frank, played by James Karen, is telling Bert to that he could destroy the brain, and he tries it, and nothing happens. And it's a funny little moment.
Oh, yeah. And the character Freddy yells, "You mean the movie lied?" And he says it in such a weird way. Just play that clip, please.
I thought you said if we destroyed the brain, it'd die.
It worked in the movie!
Well, it ain't working now, Frank.
You mean the movie lied?
In the opening scene, the exchange between Freddy and James Karen's character is so good. The back and forth.
Their chemistry and their back and forth. One thing I learned from the Red Letter Media review of this movie is that they actually had a few weeks of rehearsals for this, which is I can't imagine that like Friday the 13th Part 4 had that. or actually,
Yeah.
I don't know why I picked the best one, but so it really adds a lot to this movie, and everyone is doing like great work, and the Frank and Freddy stuff in the first like 15 minutes, especially in the pre-credits, like first like 9 minutes. It's like 9 minutes before the credits of this movie start. It's kind of like The Departed.
Do you think if the movie was an hour and a half of Freddy just being trained by Frank and them going back and forth and having that banter going on, do you think you could watch that and enjoy it?
Oh yeah, and I think I love this movie. I love everything about it, except for the slow-mo. But I do think that I do like that Frank and Freddy eventually become zombies, and they get sick and kind of sidelined through like midway through the movie. But I always do kind of regret it. Like I like those characters so much that you're like, oh, I wish they were still kind of the main people.
Well, you would love to know they returned in part 2. I don't know if you've seen part 2.
I haven't, but I did see that I could rent it, so maybe I will.
I have seen weird things come, and I have seen weird things go. But the weirdest thing I ever saw just had to cap it all.
You know what I love, though? Just the way Frank is playing Freddy, too. Like, he's telling him all these lore things with that, oh, it's really happened. That, they reanimated the dead and they're zombies. And then he's saying how there was a mix-up with the military canisters and that they have one in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
And Freddy's like kind of at the edge of his seat buying it. But I feel like as a viewer, you're also on the edge of your seat.
Oh, yeah.
He's so good with that delivery. And when he gets the phone call from his wife about dinner being ready, and like Freddy's a bit startled, he's like got that smug face, like that sardonic smile that he's just like, I got this guy. And I roped him in.
What really happened was, back in 1969 in Pittsburgh at the VA hospital, there was a chemical spill, and all that stuff kind of leaked down into the morgue, and it made all the dead bodies kind of jump around as though it was alive.
What chemical?
2,4,5-trioxin, it's called.
Did you know this movie also, it says in the first line that it takes place on July 4th.
4th of July weekend, buddy boy. Gotta move.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Part of the subgenre of July 4th. It doesn't really feel like July 4th at all, but yeah.
Where does it take place? In Kentucky?
Yes. It's some shots are clearly downtown LA, but which I love to see. So many of the films we've gone over take place in downtown LA.
You need to do a YouTube video, like a walking tour of all the places we reviewed.
That'd be great. I could do that.
Rest assured, we've got something wonderful planned for you. So much pain, so much sorrow.
Freddy's hair. I didn't notice it until we watched it. He has a blonde tail. Remember when tails were the thing?
I remember I aspired to have a tail.
And in the Stark household, we weren't allowed to have tails. That's probably why I didn't have one. But what my brother would do, he clipped off some of his hair. And when he would go to school, he would tape it to the back of his head. So
What?
he had a tail. He had a tail to be cool in school. So for a while, he was just going in the morning, putting a tail in his hair, taping it in.
He was taping it in, but not at home. I don't understand it.
No, he would take it off. So, and I asked him if it stayed in all day, and he said, yeah, that nobody like pulled it out or anything.
You should have borrowed the tail from him. You guys could have split it. You're like Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays. You get the tail Tuesdays and Thursdays. Let me take that baby for a ride. Let me see. Let me slip into that mongoose.
Do you remember when like the tail was cool, but then when the kids that grew it too long and it became like the rat tail, it was trashy?
Yep.
That's when you were like, oh, that kid's trash.
Oh,
Tail,
exactly.
cool. Tail, he's a player. Get with that guy.
Exactly. Once it got too long, you were descending. As the hair descended, so did your social class.
What happens if it was down to like your ass, where you just like the monster?
Oh yeah, not long enough for the Guinness Book World Records, but too long for society.
People are what they are. Now you have to learn to accept that, and you have to learn to accept society's rules.
You know what I want to ask you though? What was the worst haircut you think you ever had? Deliberately, like not that the barber fucked up and chopped off a bit.
I have had so many bad hair situations, including my current losing battle, my war of attrition. But the first thing that comes to mind is that I always try to spike my hair. And I remember you had perfectly spiked hair. You could have been the model of spiked hair.
It was pretty good.
My hair would never spike properly. and I was always looking for the right product. I was always like, I'll find something and like this gel or like this hairspray, but nothing would ever work for me for whatever reason. And then someone was like, oh, you know what the best way to spike your hair is? Water. And so I would try to just use water to spike my hair, but it was like, that would only work for maybe 2 minutes. And I remember being on the bus and this bully kid being like, oh, your hair looks really good. How do you spike it? And I'm like, water. And he's like, water? That's really smart. I'm going to try that. And I was like, oh, I think he's making fun of me. It must not look very good. But yeah.
Got to get that dip.
I tried it. I had the green gel. I was putting in so much of that in there. Never could get it to work.
Sorry, doesn't get the skid marks off.
Rusty, I love Linnea Quigley in this movie. She is a horror icon, and she's also good in Night of the Demons, but I love her in this movie. And also, I found her to be attractive.
Do you ever wonder about all the different ways of dying? You know, violently?
I was so into her when I rewatched Return of the Living Dead in my later years, in my teen years. I had the biggest crush, and this was, I think, pre-internet, so I didn't know who the actress was because I never watched the credits. People don't understand how hard it was to get information for the internet, but I just would watch it and be so into her.
It was so hard. Rusty was receiving messages via carrier pigeon, and he like unfolded this little scroll, and it was like, she also gets naked in Night of the Demons.
Hey, how about an orgy? I'm sure if we try, we can get Jay hard again.
I was just going to say, with all the punk and new wave characters, when we were first introduced to them walking down the street, to me, that was like a piece of art. Like, I just wanted to like have Patrick Nagel paint like that 80s style portrait of them and have that framed on my wall, baby.
That's awesome. You'll have that. I'll have the paintings from Rocky. Remember those sports paintings from like Rocky 3?
Hey woman, listen here. Since your old man ain't got no heart, maybe you'd like to see a real man.
You know, which character though did you like the most of the punks? Because they all kind of had a unique personality. They were all friends, which some of them didn't seem like they belonged in the group. But which character do you find the most relatable?
I like Linnea Quigley. I like who is the other actress who Dan O'Bannon discovered as a stripper?
Jewel Shepard.
Yeah, she is cool.
The new wave. She's kind of new wave looking. Yeah, she has the purplish hair. You know, it's crazy that I didn't know the actor that plays Chuck, the preppy-ish guy, the one that's constantly flirting with the girl you just named. The actor is John Philbin, and he was in Point Break. He played the Jimmy Carter bank robber, and he was like had that surfer look. I loved his look from Point Break. I don't know how familiar you are with that movie now, but he had that like quintessential like surfer look, and he's actually a surfer in real life.
I also love Suicide, who is like the leader of the gang, and he's my least favorite. Really? Yeah. I like that he seems like a macho kind of Henry Rollins guy, but he has like a softer side.
Nobody understands me, you know that? I fucking bust my ass for you guys, and what do I get? You're spooky. Fuck you, man. Fuck you all.
But I mean, the breakout character is the guy, the black guy. I don't remember his name.
Spider, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the most heroic of the bunch.
Where the fuck you going? Help me by the door, stupid fuckers!
Spider, Araignée in French. Rusty, so Linnea Quigley. I love when they're driving in the car at night and they're on their way to the graveyard, and she's like, "Oh, actually, no, it's when they're in the graveyard, and she's talking about how she'd want to die." She's like, I'll tell you how I want to die. And kind of randomly reminded me of Stardust Memories, just to mention another problematic film person. There's the scene where the actress tells Woody Allen that she'd want to be torn apart by wild animals. But it made me think, how would, genuinely, real question, how would you want to die? Like some people want to die in their sleep. Some people, you know.
Yeah, that's the obvious answer because hopefully it's somewhat painless. How would you want to go?
Well, it's so obvious. I would want to be buried alive.
It was horrifying. Like The Vanishing. Oh my God, that's horrifying.
I would love that. Some time alone to think. Finally.
I can't believe we're gonna party here.
The soundtrack's pretty interesting for this movie, especially for that time period. Consists of some decent psychobilly and punk bands.
Really? I don't know anything about the soundtrack.
Yeah, I mean, just names TSOL, I'm sure you know. The Damned, I'm sure you know. The Cramps, but also had a band SSQ. Do you know who they are? Do you remember them?
No, I never heard of them in my life.
SSQ was originally Q, named after the James Bond character, but the pop singer Stacey Q was the front person for that band. Do you know Stacey Q, singer of Two of Hearts?
Two hearts that beat as one. Two hearts, I need you.
She was in that band, and I had a crush. I had a crush on everyone, so this shouldn't surprise anybody that listens. But Stacey Q was, besides being a pop star, she was also on an episode of Facts of Life, and I know you were kind of a fan of that show growing up.
I remember this, I think.
Do you remember the episode she was on?
I remember an episode, like, I don't know which sitcom it was, but I remember the song was Two of Hearts. And it was like the people were performing it for like a contest.
But like Stacey Q does this performance of it. And oh my God, that drove me crazy back then.
I will be watching this on YouTube right after this.
Yeah, Stacey Q, she was wearing like very tight pink leggings and like a little halter top. But man, she had so much hair and very, very slim build. I kind of would love to have that look now.
The ultimate sexual fantasy, I would say, let's make love, and then after, can you give me a Ziploc bag full of extra hair? I will get home, I will tape it to my head like your brother taped that tail to his head, and I'm going to have a great time.
I kind of just want to go to a plastic surgery and just be made into Stacey Q from that time.
That could be great.
Take those ribs out.
I'll make a reality show about you, like plastic surgery nightmares. Remember Stacey Q? This man wants to be her.
I don't know where this fits into the world of Return of the Living Dead, but Stacey Q brings me back. When I saw SSQ, and I was just like, Stacey Swain. So wait, isn't that Stacey Q? And it was. I was just like, shit.
So I love in this, not to get too into the plot, but so Frank is giving Freddy the tour of the facility. And when he goes to show them, the way the whole movie starts is just so funny because he's like, shows him the tanks. And then he says,
yeah, well, maybe my balls don't itch. All balls itch. It's a fact.
And then everything just from there just starts escalating. And for the whole movie, it's like it starts with the dog cut in half and the butterflies on the board. So it starts small and then just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, bigger, bigger in such a satisfying way that the movie is never boring and it's always interesting.
You did what? You opened it, you stupid moron, you idiot. What's the matter with you, Frank? Haven't I always told you never to even go near those goddamn tanks?
It's just a series of bad decisions. And I love it. You know, with the dog that's cut in half, didn't you feel bad for it when they're beating it with a crutch?
I guess I did.
I love Freddy's reaction when he picks it up too. And he touches like that viscous on it.
Yeah.
That's such a nice natural reaction.
It really is. They get so much out of just like, a little moist insides and that sound effect where they're beating it with the crutch.
I also love when they hear the moans of the reanimated cadaver.
Yeah.
And they're like, what is that?
I love when they go inside and they're freaking out and Freddy is like,
Stupid asshole! Watch your tongue, boy, if you like this job! Like this job! Think!
I also like when the cadaver is going nuts and Freddy's just like to Frank, he's like,
Well, what you doing in there? I don't know, it sounds fair! Well, what are we gonna do? Lock it in! Yeah!
Funny thing to say about a fucking, if you were in that situation, it's like, is that what you'd be saying? But it's humorous. You know what I also like though, when Clu Gulager comes, Bert's character, and they're trying to think what to do, and they say, oh, we got to get rid of the body, or we got to let it out and then kill it. And he hands James Cameron or Frank the axe to kill it with. And his reaction when he's handed the axe is so brilliant. People need to go back and watch it.
Pickaxe.
the pickaxe. Just go back and watch that clip of James Karen getting the pickaxe. He makes like a face like what? Like that he's shocked that he has to do this.
I don't think I can do this, Bert. Well, you damn well better. You got us into this. Oh, Jesus.
I read the Roger Ebert review of this, and he gave it 3 stars, I think, out of 4, and he was generally pretty positive. But he was like, "Oh, Dan O'Bannon, it's like pretty pedestrian directing," and I was like, "Man, I think it's great." I think that Dan O'Bannon should have been like a director of way more movies. It's crazy that he only did one other, I think, H.P. Lovecraft adaptation.
I really have no qualms about this movie. I don't have any issues with the directing, the writing, the acting.
Yeah,
the pacing. Everything is good about this movie.
Everything is good about this movie.
This is great.
What did you think of when they broke to the general, the nuke guy?
Oh, yeah.
What a miserable general he was. Jeez.
Hello, dear. How was your day?
Usual crap.
Yeah. That's going to be my life, bald, living in some house like that.
You're going to come home. Your wife will have a dinner for you. You'll be pissed because you ate it for lunch. Same thing.
Lamb chops.
I had that for lunch.
Lamb chops, such a weird thing to have for lunch. That's such a funny moment, though. Like the way that like she like looks as he leaves the room after he says that. It's just kind of this like quick moment of her looking really dissatisfied with her life, but comic in a way.
I like the scene and all, but what was the point of showing that interaction with his wife? Like the whole point of his storyline was that he would eventually get that phone call and handle the situation with those canisters.
Well, I think it's a testament to the movie being good because every single character has a little bit of dimension to them. So even this guy is given a little bit of dimension. Whereas, in most movies, a supporting character, there's like no identifiable things about them that you learn.
It's nerve-wracking to live around that equipment all the time.
They have to be able to reach me 24 hours a day, wherever I am. You know that.
All that microwave stuff affects my oven.
When we find them, you can have the equipment taken out.
But when will you find them?
Christ, Ethel, I don't know.
Everything's going wrong for our heroes. Mm-hmm. Two of them are showing signs of sickness, Frank and Freddy, because they inhaled the fumes from the barrel. And they call Bird in to help out, and that's Clu Gulager. And his solution that he comes up with is that there's a mortuary next door, and he's kind of friends with the mortician there, this guy Ernie.
Well, who's Ernie Kaltenbrunner?
He's the embalmer at the mortuary across the street.
Well, what the hell's he going to do for us?
So he comes up with the idea that maybe they can incinerate them, and they go over there, and we're introduced to Ernie the mortician, played by Don Calfa.
Yeah, this is a good character.
I liked his character, even though, as everyone points out, that he's like a Nazi in hiding.
Yes.
Did you pick up on that? Or when did you pick up on that?
I think I first picked up on it. I was looking at the IMDb trivia, and it said that, and I was like, "Oh yeah, okay."
There are elements. Obviously, the gun he's using is German.
Yeah, there's like a Nazi. It's funny because I saw the IMDb trivia. First 10 times I see this movie, I never noticed it. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to watch out for it this time. And then like in the background of the mortuary, there's like a Nazi painting.
Somebody also said there's a swastika somewhere that's like blurred out, or like you see parts of it.
Mm-hmm.
I could not find that when I rewatched it.
And he's also wearing New Balances, which I heard became the sneaker of the alt-right later. But he's actually got pretty cool sneakers.
I was going to say, those aren't bad. What's the tracksuit he's wearing? Adidas. Weren't those German guys too?
I'm not sure.
But there's a moment where after they incinerate the reanimated pieces, he's staring out the window as the fumes are, dispersing into the air and it starts to rain. And he says something in German. And it sounds like it's
coming down like einen betrunkenen Soldat.
But there's some debate to what he says and how it's translated.
Oh,
the translation
wait.
the
I speak a tiny bit of German, and I think I actually know what he says here. I believe I'm not positive, but I think it is. Please rate and review the podcast.
Wait, specifically ours, or just in general?
Ours. And now, for those of you that got past that first time we begged, Scroll down, hit 5 stars, please.
But what he does, people are saying, based on the subtitles, which he says something along the lines of "drunken soldier."
Okay.
But what people that people that speak German, according to a subreddit on this, is that he refers to, or it's translated to, infiltrating soldier.
Okay.
So that would be interesting if that's the actual translation.
Yeah, because that would set up the idea that he knows that burning these zombies is going to bring hell upon the earth.
When there is no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth.
What is your take on the science that Ernie mentions?
About rigor mortis and that's kind of like the heart being the hardest things to cremate.
Hardest thing to burn is the heart.
Heart? Why?
Because it's just one big tough muscle.
Yeah, but Ernie, I mean, come on, we don't want the heart sticking around.
An alternative powder for the heart.
What about the split dogs? They gotta go.
The split dogs will go too.
Or the rigor mortis starts in the brain and then settles down to the organs and then the muscles. I don't know either of these.
Yeah.
I don't know if either of those
could believe
are
the
remotely
heart.
true.
I could believe the heart. You know what's something horrible that I learned from the book Bloodlands is that women burn better than men. So when the Nazis were burning bodies, they would put the women underneath as like kindling kind of, because women have more body fat. The body fat is like the most flammable thing.
Oh my God.
It's a comedy podcast. It's a comedy podcast.
He's turning comedy into tragedy, everyone.
He has to stop reading Bloodlands and the book about Robert Moses, and he'll get his comedy back.
But I want to say, though, I've seen some fucking ashes in my time.
Oh, I've been in them.
Have you eaten some?
No, I stepped in them on my bare feet.
Whose ashes?
Marianne Douglas. She
was Marianne Douglas.
She was an old lady who, the place that I used to go to in Maine, she owned it. And she was like in her 90s when she died. She was good friends with my family. And her son was kind of like, it was weird because she had lived in New York like in like the 40s and like knew all these like jazz legends. And for an old lady was like, kind of hip. But her son was kind of
dirt-eating piece of slime, you scum-sucking pig, you son of a motherless goat.
But he was also a dick. And after she died, one day I was playing wiffle ball and running in the field barefoot, and I stepped in like it seemed like Jones Beach sand. And I was like, what is this? And then I was like, oh, these must be the ashes. And then we were like, hey, Bill, where do you put Marianne's ashes? And he's like, well, I just put them down there in that field. He's like, she wanted to be spread in the lake, but I just put her in the field. I was like, oh, I did step in her ashes. And then actually, I later took the Ouija board up there and then rubbed the ashes directly on the Ouija board, thinking that it would give it more magic, but did not. Or maybe it did, actually. It was pretty effective.
Oh, you dirty bastards.
Oh, not tonight, my boy. Oh, no, not tonight.
You know who we have to mention? One of my favorite characters, Tarman himself.
Oh yeah,
the legend of Tarman.
So once everything starts going wrong in this, he's the guy in the barrel, right?
Yep, Tarman. Oh, he became Tarman once they opened it, or once they broke the canister.
Yeah.
Why is he so adorable but gross?
I don't know. It's his eyes, his exposed brain, the way he moves.
If you were trapped in a room and behind the curtain came either Tarman, the reanimated cadaver, or the party skeleton, who would you want to take your chances with to survive?
I feel like the reanimated cadaver seemed like the least. Like, I feel like I could take care of him, even though he was kind of the creepiest in a way, the way that his body was like yellow. Here's a really specific reference, but he looks kind of like, remember the game Perfect Dark when you'd fight the computer guys?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But he moved so quickly, though. He could do a full sprint.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty fast myself.
But by the time they pulled the curtain and you had a chance to process, he's already got you down. He's doing a double leg takedown on you. Fucking Tarman's, boogieing over to you. The party skeleton just partying, man.
Yeah, that's I guess so. I guess I just put on the right track and like let the party skeleton dance while I sneak out.
Do you think in a perfect world you could be friends with Tarman, Reanimated Cadaver, and Party Skeleton?
I think so. That'll be my. I want to do a shot-for-shot remake of Entourage, except those are the guys.
Which character are you?
Vincent Chase for sure.
What do you think Tarman's doing now? You think he's settled down? Well, he's got some brains.
They knocked his head off with a baseball bat.
Yeah, but that doesn't kill him.
That's true. It's a pretty good effect too, because like after they hit him, like it was obviously like a shorter person in like a the headless costume, but it really flails around in a believable way.
I have an idea that can make Phantom Menace a much better movie. Replace Jar Jar Binks with Tarman. He's a goofy but lovable.
Oh, they walk very similarly.
Yeah, they do. But imagine if Tarman was in Phantom, it would be immediately a much better movie.
Yeah, I love that.
Excuse me.
When Frank and Freddy go into the basement and they do that shot where they pan down on the barrel, and they show that in case of emergency, call 1-800-454-8000. Do you think you could have called that number at that time, and if it would have been something?
I think we should call that number right now. Let's make a scammy 800 number.
Welcome to America's hottest talk line. Guys, hot ladies
Oh,
are
wow.
waiting to talk to you. Press 1 now. Ladies, to talk to interesting and exciting guys free. Press 2 to connect free now. Guys, press 1 now. Ladies, press 2 now.
Should I press anything? It actually hung up on me. Well, that we have our answer. We have our answer. What if you call the number on the canister? That is what you get now.
What can I say? You're beautiful.
You know what scene I love? So things keep escalating, and I love when the paramedics are testing Frank and Freddy, and it becomes like very clear that the paramedics are finding that they're dead. But the way it unfolds is very funny and satisfying.
You have no pulse. Your blood pressure is 0/0. You have no pupillary response, no reflexes. Your temperature is 70 degrees.
What does that mean?
Well, it's a puzzle. Because technically, you're not alive. Except you're conscious, so we don't know what it means.
You know what scene? The only thing another thing I don't love about this movie is when they're.
Oh, you're going down for this.
Yeah, when they're the barricading, like things are really escalating. There's a shitload of zombies outside. The acid rain has fallen and made these people rise from the dead, and they're trapped inside this location. And they pull that like half woman through the door, and they like tie her down and talk to her. They tie her up. It's funny that Dan O'Bannon also wrote Life Force, and Tobe Hooper was supposed to direct this, but then directed Life Force because it looks so much like Life Force. Like I thought it added a lot. Like I like the idea how the zombie says that they eat the brains of people because the pain of being dead is so horrible. So I like that was like it gave an explanation to that was kind of satisfying and also kind of creepy. But this is such a petty complaint. But the woman's voice, it doesn't sound like it's in the same room. Like it sounds like it's a voiceover.
Why do you eat people?
Not people. Brains.
But why brains? What's the theory behind that?
I don't know.
Why not anything? Just to eat other humans that are alive to cure the pain.
Yeah.
They didn't ask enough questions. They should really give more of an interrogation.
Oh yeah, they should have been. Yeah. From the color of her hair and stuff, I was like, she almost looks punk, but she's obviously older. So I wonder if that's like hair coloring.
Yeah.
Where are you from? What's your story? You know?
Are you a dickhead or what? What do you think?
So basically the movie, it keeps escalating. Things keep getting worse. The horde of zombies outside. It's very standard stuff, but it's very satisfying because I feel like the zombies have like better tactics or a little smarter in just kind of a more fun way.
And they're also
compared to other zombies.
They're also humorous and not in that hammy way like in Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the Dead?
Yeah, there's a few things.
I guess so.
Or the way
there were some hammy things.
Yeah. Isn't there like pie throwing and stuff?
Yeah. And then, I mean, I think during the pie throwing stuff, isn't there like circus music playing? There's definitely some parts that get a little corny.
Yeah.
Whereas I love the recurring joke where the paramedics come and then the zombies kill the paramedics, and then the zombie says,
I'm in distress. Send more paramedics.
And then they call the cops get overwhelmed, and then the zombie says,
Make this fucking scumbag big and hard.
You know what I like though, when the paramedics come and the people that are inside are yelling at them like, "Don't go over to the other paramedics that are already down." And you just see like the zombies ambush them, and one of them like football tackles one of the paramedics. It's like, there's no way that guy didn't get injured.
It's so great. Yeah, definitely. I was thinking the same thing.
Like he broke an elbow or something.
And yeah, it's just I don't know. What can you say about this movie? It's another episode where we're just like, such a good movie, but it is such a good movie.
Yeah, you know what's another scene that I just want to mention is with the acid rain, when the punk characters are, getting hit with acid rain and they're looking for cover. And it's funny that Linnea Quigley could never find clothing. She would like get wrapped up in something and then it get torn off or get stuck on something, so she would have to abandon it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a very it's such a good it's really good writing, because Linnea Quigley, she's gotten naked earlier. She's been naked the whole movie.
Yeah.
And so she's having the biggest reaction to the acid rain. And she keeps saying, it's like burning, it's burning, it's burning. And we see that the acid rain is what raises the zombies. And then at the very end of the movie, spoilers, but it doesn't matter because whatever. When the military nukes the area to get rid of the zombies, and the final voiceover of the movie, they're like, "Oh, don't worry about the fires. The rain will put it out." Although people have been complaining about a burning sensation. And then it like perfectly ties together to the earlier moment and sets up that the world's going to be overwhelmed by zombies.
With the acid rain, do you remember in the 1980s, the acid rain phenomena?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
That was like everywhere. There's so many like precautionary tales of acid rain. It's coming.
Acid rain was my only hope to kill the killer bees. I was like, if they arrive on the same day, we're saved.
Do you remember the infamous Different Strokes episode?
Oh, yes. Kimberly, is that her name?
Kimberly, yeah. She's about to go to like a dance or something, and she goes out on the balcony, and acid rain's coming down.
It turns her hair green.
But were there other PSAs and stuff? I'm sure there was a G.I. Joe PSA on acid rain.
Probably. It was a huge thing.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that, you thought it was going to be what destroyed civilization, but just like the hole in the ozone layer, it wasn't the thing. There was a twist.
Well, he's dead now. And I ambushed. Watching
this movie so young, and obviously a lot of the humor going way over my head, I watched this, and I didn't watch this with my parents or anything, but I watched it at a kid's birthday party, which the parents knew we were watching. And I watched it several other times, probably on HBO. It was an HBO movie, right?
I don't know. I didn't have HBO.
Oh. Your life would have been different.
It really would have been. I think about that all the time, because all I had were a few movies on VHS. I had my taped off the TV Star Wars / Dumbo combo, which I watched all the time, which obviously left deep scars for me. I had A Secret of My Success, another one left deep scars for me, and Rocky 3. Those were and the George Brett Tide Par incident game. Those were the videos I had, and Cobra with Stallone.
Oh, nice.
Your disease, and I'm the cure.
If you had HBO, you would have gotten over your Catholic guilt so much quicker.
I know. And there's so many movies I would have been into that are just like unknown to me.
But the thing is, watching these movies, my parents had no issues with my brother or myself watching films with nudity. That was like, yeah, that's part of life. Like, yeah, they're going to see this stuff. Did your parents strictly prohibit that from your house?
No, it's kind of a weird Catholic. The thing is, I remember I once heard that like Catholic guilt is like it just gets in your molecules, even if you're not like being subjected to it. Because my dad was like really into film and really into like art film, and like so like artistic nudity was like not an issue at all. But I just somehow put it on myself, like the incident I mentioned where Three's Company was on. My dad said, all the jokes on this are about sex, and I just took off running to my bedroom screaming. That was my first memory of sex being mentioned. And it was like, there was like company over, and he said it. He's like, "Oh, every joke's about sex," and I just went, "Ah!" and just ran like Kevin McAllister, like with my hands over my head, like waving them.
That'd be amazing if you never outgrew that. Don't mention. You can't mention sex around Ed. Just the word of it drives him crazy.
Oh, great! Here's your friend and mine.
Hey, fuck you, ball buster.
So, what do you think of the way this movie wraps up?
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Did you expect it with the military, with the nuke strike?
No, they do a great job of misdirecting it kind of earlier.
Yeah.
And even though, you should make the connection because that's why there's that kind of, I wouldn't even call it a subplot, but that's why they set up the military guy.
Yeah.
But you don't expect it. You definitely don't expect all the miniatures that appear at the very end of the movie, which looks so fake. But I love miniatures. I mean, I love them more when they're done really well, like Logan's Run or something. But it's fun to see. It's a cool ending. And the funny thing is, I don't really know why they needed those miniatures. I feel like they could have done every single thing that they do, but without using those.
I don't mind it.
Yeah, no, I don't mind it either.
I think the movie's playful in so many ways that like it's just like, oh, one more thing.
Oh yeah, it's a complete reflection of everything that comes before. It feels like of a piece with that.
Do you think Freddy got to what's her character? To Ernie and his kind of pseudo girlfriend. What was her name?
Oh, that's a great
Tina.
Yeah. So they're hiding in the attic, and he's the Ernie guy. I love how the Ernie guy is like thinking about killing her, and then he's going to kill himself.
Yeah,
but he's kind of got an interesting expression as he's doing it. Like he's like a sadistic guy.
Yeah.
I don't think so though, because I think when it froze, that was the moment when the nuke hit, and so I think it was right before that.
I have to say though, Freddy with his eyes burned out, that freaked me out when I was younger.
So many little effective things in this film, and that is definitely one of them.
Especially like when he says like Tina, like what does he say about her brains? Like,
but I don't care, darling, because I love you. You've got to let me eat your
I like how he has kind of like the vibe of like an abusive boyfriend.
He seems like such a good guy though. Like they all love Freddy. Freddy's like,
oh yeah, no, I mean when he's a zombie.
Oh, you know what I want to know though? Well, how come Freddy? What kind of job does Freddy have that he gets off work at 10?
Hey, is that Freddy?
Where?
Over there, going into that building.
Nope, that is not Freddy.
He worked at like Bert checked out at 5, and James Cameron's character was leaving soon after. Why would Freddy be there until 10 by himself if he just was getting training?
I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh, we found an issue with the movie.
We did.
Burn it.
Check the time. We need to check the time cards on this film.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
And I'll end this episode with one question to you: if you were a zombie, if you got turned into a zombie, whose brain would you eat? Who would be your first victim?
Probably Donald Trump Jr.
There you have it.
There you have it. You never see zombies eating animals. That's probably... It's like Interview with a Vampire. If you eat an animal, it's kind of like a budget thing. You're like, this is not the life I wanted to live.
Do you remember in My Best Friend's a Vampire? Did you ever see that? With
yes.
Robert Sean Leonard?
I loved all the movies like that.
He tried to resist. I think he was going to Whole Foods and getting the blood from like meat packets.
Oh, the weird thing is I've seen this movie semi-recently because I didn't even know Whole Foods existed back then. I remember seeing it and being like, oh, that's weird.
We'll be back in 2 weeks with March Madness continuing. I hope this was pretty insane for everyone.
Yes.
What are we doing in 2 weeks? Do we know?
We are going to remake The Shape of Water with Merman as the fish person.
I feel like my head's gonna bust wide open. And I want to puke. And I'm weak too.
Me too. I got the chills. It's that stuff, Bert.
What would be the most horrible way to die?
Try not to think about dying too much.
Well, for me, the worst way would be for a bunch of old men to get around me and start biting and eating me alive.
I see.